it's Shannon. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, please hit that subscribe button because you'll find new DIYs, tutorials, and new inspiration here every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm here again for another she shed update. I will link a playlist down below so you get caught up on where we are right now. I left you off on a huge transformation of the she shed. We're finally inside and all of the beautiful details are starting to come together. So I'm hoping in this video you'll see even more beautiful transformations. I'm in the office right now. We've spent a lot of time up to this point in here, so I want to get you guys caught up. One of the very simple upgrades that we made to the office was changing out the hardware that came on the cabinets. So these are really pretty knobs that I found on Amazon, and I'll link them down in my Amazon favorite store. They made such a huge, beautiful impact, and I love this really quick and simple transformation to tie the look into the whole space. I also installed them on the cabinets that are underneath my desk. So all of the drawers and then the one cabinet door also got a set of these handles as well. Then I moved on to some of the finishing touches in the office, like adding trim to the shiplap. I used a real thin wood called lattice for this. It was really easy to cut, and then I used my brad nailer to attach it to the walls all the way around the top trim of the shiplap. Brian also did a beautiful job of installing the window trim and the windowsill of the office window. After looking at an unfinished window for so long, it was such a beautiful look, even just the wood, to cover up some of the inside workings of the window. But of course, then we also painted out the shiplap trim and all of the windowsill and framing with the same colored white paint as the shiplap. Element to this room was the window that's on the opposite side of the desk. Here's a look at it before we did any work to it at all. It is a reclaimed window, so it needed some work. Brian did a beautiful job of trimming this out as well. We also painted it white, just like the rest of the room, and have a now beautiful finished window. Another big project we finished in this room was our Nordly IKEA hacks. You can see we have a framed out base on the floor before we added our Nordly cabinets on top. Then we added some brace pieces to the wall before installing the countertop. I have a whole video dedicated on all of the details and every step we went through to create this built-in cabinet. So I will make sure to link that down in the description box. You can check it out there. I do also plan on doing a more in-depth and in-detail tour of my office and craft room, so make sure to stay tuned for that. I also completed my command center above this built-in cabinet unit. I have a full video dedicated to all the details on this, so I will link that down in the description box below as well. And I'll share with you all the details, all the products that I used, as well as some tips and tricks to creating your own command center. Now in the last video, I shared with you that we were starting work on the loft, and I was working on creating a faux hardwood floor. So I basically took plain plywood and used a lot of elbow grease and a Sharpie marker to create that faux planked floor look. I have a video dedicated to this as well, so you want to check the description box for all of these tutorials. And this is basically just a look at the before and after, so you can see the beautiful transformation. After the wood had cured and dried, after I sealed it, I added some trim around the edges to make sure it had a finished look. I also added some trim around what will be the railing uprights. And I also installed all of the baseboard, which is basically just 1x2s that I cut down to size and painted white, and then used my brad nailer to install it around the room edge. Brian also came up later and added some white caulk, and that filled in any gaps that there were or imperfections. He also installed the trim around the AC and heater unit. Hi guys. I don't know where I left off in my last spiel with the she shed, but it is March 1st. Brian's back here. We are in the loft. Basically, we have two outlets up here. One is a special USB outlet, and I didn't really like the location of it. I want it to be a little more accessible to the kids, so he's flip-flopping to the outlets. Once he's done with that, all I gotta do is clean up here, and then I can actually start accessorizing and put all the fun stuff up here. After that, I also am gonna work on the window that's down there. So that's gonna get, we already refinished the outside, but the inside still needs refinished, so we're gonna work on that today. And then also the office underneath me is gonna get some accessories today as well. So we got lots to do. Now I do plan on doing a loft tour video completely by itself, so make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for that. This is just kind of a sneak peek of what the space looks like before you get an in-depth tour. All right, so that was a lot of fun, finally getting the fun accessories up here for the kiddos. We do have a few other things that need to be done up here. The first thing is the trim. I'm sure you've noticed that all the way around. We cannot do the ceiling trim in here until the fireplace is done, because it will all run into that, and that will kind of change things. So we're not doing that yet, but it's not one of those things that I feel like needs to be done before the kids can come up here and play. But the big thing that does have to get done before they can come up here and enjoy it is we have to put the rail up here, which is the safety feature, so that they don't fall off the side, right? So that'll hopefully be done by tomorrow. I also need to build a ladder that is gonna go from the floor, obviously, up into the loft. So that's on my to-do list, so we don't always have to use the step ladder. But now I'm gonna move down into the office and I'll show you some of those accessories. But what I wanted to tell you about is this painting back here. This is the most important special thing that's going into the office. This is a family heirloom. This is a painting that has been in my family for a long time. The frame is original to it, so it's always had that frame. And the colors are just perfect. So I love the antique goldish kind of look. The building kind of has a purplish tint to it, which goes with my rug. And the coolest thing about it is the back. So I will flip this around so you can see. So on the back here, it says Olive and Earl Smith's home. And that is my great grandma and grandpa, my pawpaw's parents. And it says, picture was painted for Father's Day for Glenn Smith, who's my pawpaw. And that is, it says their son. It is to go to Shannon Smith someday, and that is my maiden name. So this was one of those things that my grandma wanted to 100% make sure that I got, and so I'm so thrilled to have this in my office. Not only because obviously it's special and it is a family heirloom, but because it also matches really well. And it's a farmhouse, which is amazing. The other cool thing is there is a newspaper clipping in here. So let me take this out so you can see it too. All right, so my grandma found this newspaper clipping. It says it is from June 1995, and it says it's the Samuel W. Road home in Brownstown. So if you're from Illinois, maybe you know the Brownstown area. That is where my family is from, and you can see on here that that is the house right there. So this is the whole history of the home, and it says the Fayette Times salutes 125 years of Browntown history. So that is just an amazing thing, and I couldn't be like more proud to have this hanging in my office.
Next, we worked on our giant 6 foot by 6 foot 16 pane windows. So each one of those panes needed to be taped off, not once, but twice, because the first step was to tape them off, and then the whole thing needed caulked so it could be sealed and waterproof from the inside. After it had been caulked, then Brian added the trim to the outside of the window to make it look nice. And once the caulk was dry and the tape was removed, it all needed to be retaped again because then it needed to be painted. So the whole thing got 2 more coats of white paint. So it's definitely a long process, basically because it needed taped and worked on so many times, but it still was a lot easier than working on the outside of the window. And it looks so nice, and it was definitely worth all the effort. This was a beautiful reclaimed window that now has life again.
All right, so update time. We have done so much. So you saw that we got the loft pretty much finished. We still have to do the handrail and the ladder, and that is it. And then trim around the edges, but that's like a whole like much later kind of thing. We also have got the office pretty much like, I would say 85% done, enough to where I am in my office for the first time actually working. We were able to finish this IKEA hack. This is the Nordley system with one of their countertops. I'll make sure to link that video if you want to go check that out. That has been a lifesaver. I'm so excited that I have this huge work surface and all of this storage down here now. Above that, I have a brand new command center. So it has a filing system, has a calendar, it has a cork board, it has a clock, it has all kinds of great things. And it's gonna make staying organized and keeping everything kind of contained and together really easy for me. So I also have that video, and I will make sure to link that down in the description box so you can check that out too, so you can see where I found everything and how it all came together. All right, so time for another update. It has been a hot minute since I've actually gotten on here and updated about the she shed, because I've actually been in here working and not necessarily working on the she shed. So we're basically still where I last left off, with still needing to do some things to finish the loft. And we also have a lot to do out there, because as nice as it looks in here, it's out there that really needs the work done now. Right now, it is March 25th, 2020, and we are kind of at the beginning-ish, middle-ish stages of the whole quarantine that's going on with the coronavirus and that whole pandemic. So Brian right now has some oddball hours. He's kind of working less hours, and he just happens to have today off in the middle of the week, so that's unusual. So we're taking today to get some projects started and possibly finish some in the she shed today. So I'm excited about that nonetheless. Obviously, we have plenty to do around here to keep us busy during this quarantine. Hopefully you guys are all doing well, staying busy, staying safe. So we're gonna go ahead and get started working in the she shed today. All right, so outside of my office, this is what this still looks like. It hasn't changed in quite a while. what I'd really love to do is to frame out where we want the fireplace. So this is actually the insert of the fireplace. We want a hearth, we want a mantle, and then we want this to go all the way up to the ceiling up there. But I also really want to get the flooring installed. So you can see I have some of it laid out here. I used this as a backdrop of my toilet paper holder tutorial. If you want to check that out, I'll link that down below too. But that's what the thumbnail sat on. So this is actually the flooring that we're going to install in here. And we cannot install any of the flooring until we basically have our cabinets in place and our fireplace at least framed out on the bottom so we know where to lay the flooring to. So over here on this side, you can see we still have lots of equipment and tools. And then up there is the loft that has been getting used during this time. My son extremely likes to be up there, so he's been enjoying that, but we need to get the railing installed and the ladder built so that he's safe. He's a very, very timid kind of little kid, so he doesn't get anywhere near the railing anyway, and he also always tells me when he's coming down, so I always help him. So it hasn't been an issue, but obviously we just want to make sure it's safe, so we really need to get the railing installed. And then basically the office is done minus the flooring, so that is why we're really wanting to get the fireplace framed out so we can get flooring installed, because all we have left to do in here is to lay the flooring and to put the trim along the bottom of the floor. This is something new. Let me pull this chair out. This is new. This is my new heater. It's an infrared heater, and it's also hooked up to Wi-Fi, so I'm able to turn this on while I'm still in the house and get it warmed up in here. It also tells you what the temperature is currently in here, so we can see if we really need to turn it on or not. So that's been really nice. But yeah, basically the office is done. We need to trim out the doorway for sure, but again, we can't do any of that until the flooring is laid. The window is all done. So it's basically an update, and we're gonna go ahead and get started with starting and finishing some projects in here. And also, this is all trim. So we bought 1x4s to trim out the floor in here. So this is gonna get painted white, and then once we get the floor laid, it will go along the bottom of all of the floors. So it's basically the baseboard. And I really wanna do something cool with the trim that's gonna go around the door. So I'm gonna hold off on that. Can't wait to share that with you guys if I can find what I'm really looking for. But then all the trim will go like kick plates for those, and then the fireplace will have its own kind of sort of trim and things.
Here is a look at the fireplace wall after we had gotten it all cleaned up and everything moved out of the way so we could get to work. We did have to add some spacers to the sides to take into consideration we would need to open doors of the cabinets. We also had to straighten them and square them up and level them and everything before we permanently affixed them to the wall, before we could start adding the framing to the floor. Brian also added some plastic over the insulation. We didn't feel it necessary to drywall this space since you weren't going to see it anyway, so the plastic was a much easier and more economical way of securing the insulation before framing this all out. We did start with frames on the floor before adding boxes basically to the wall, and then we also added 4 uprights to the corners. We still have more uprights to add. We need to do another hardware store run once this quarantine is over, but this is what it looks like as we sit today.
All right, so it is the next day, and I could not be more excited to see the fireplace finally starting to take shape. Honestly, I didn't think we were gonna get this far, and it took a lot more than it looks like. So it looks like basically some squares and a ladder up each side, and kind of it is if you wanna dumb it down and make it a little bit more simplified, but a lot of thought and a lot of attention to detail went into this thing, and we still have quite a bit of a ways to go. We need to build the bookcases that are gonna go on each side. We need to build the inset for the fireplace, the actual fireplace unit. We're also gonna be installing a TV above the mantle, so there's still a lot more to go, and I do plan on making a whole video just dedicated to the fireplace build, but this is a great start. But I am gonna go ahead and end this video here so I can get an update for you guys up. I know you guys enjoy seeing the process and the progress that we're making in here, and we are getting so close. I'm so hoping that in the next video you will see flooring and a beautiful fireplace and all the finishing details done, so we are like right there. So thank you guys so much for joining me and following along with this journey. Make sure to hit that subscribe button next to me if you haven't yet, and I'll put the She Shed playlist below that if you want to get caught up and see the whole process from beginning to end. And come find me on Facebook and on Instagram because you'll get more updates that way and more sneak peeks. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye everyone.